Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric series. Who's Nintendo suing this week and why are they suing them? And we have an absolutely hilarious and amazing update to the Palworld lawsuit, because we've gone over this in depth in a few previous videos talking about the patent lawsuit that Nintendo filed against Pocket Pair, the parent company of Palworld, and just how incredibly vague those patents were. So I'm going to go over today how Nintendo basically gamed the patent system to apply for some child patents off the parents to basically force Palworld's hand into infringing things, as well as the fact that one of those three patents may not even be admissible in court anymore due to some prior art situations, because this is absolutely getting ridiculous on Nintendo's part and they are being vindictive here, and we're going to talk about that in the video. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But in previous videos, we went over Nintendo's patents and just how vague they were about throwing a ball into a virtual space and affecting the playfield in front of you. Stuff about capture mechanics and everything else. But we really kind of narrowed it down to saying that these patents are so vague, any game could potentially be infringing upon them. Something like Madden throwing a ball into a playfield, technically a lawyer could argue that that would be an infringement on Nintendo's patent. And a lot of you guys noticed that the patent filing date was after Palworld actually came out, and that was intentional on Nintendo's part because they researched Palworld and then went back in and amended some patents to basically make sure that Palworld would be infringing upon those new patents. It technically is a legal way to do this, but it is very greasy if you know what I mean. And you'll see here in Palworld, throwing this Pokeball definitely does make it seem like a Pokemon game. But the question is, does Nintendo have standing to actually have the patent on this? We're going to talk about that in the video, and hilariously enough, Grand Theft Auto 5 is going to come to Palworld's potential rescue here, and that's just going to be pretty funny, but we'll get to that in just a moment. When we went through the first video, I went over all of the patents I felt like Nintendo would be referencing in the lawsuit, because when Nintendo announced this suit, they did not give any of the patent information out, and I actually found that very weird. You think they would have referenced that immediately, but it was actually Pocket Pair that sent out a press release talking about each individual patent. But we went through some of the patents and some of the drawings, and then basically identified what Nintendo could possibly take issue with within Palworld, because it wasn't about any sort of design copyright off the characters in the two games. It was based simply upon the gameplay mechanics, and I was able to pull this drawing up here from different patents talking about a player character throwing a ball into a play field and affecting what was going on in front of them. And at this point in time, I talked about prior art, the fact that there's so many different games that basically do near to the exact same thing. And if you're not familiar with the term prior art, it basically means that you cannot get a patent on something that's already been done before, even if that wasn't technically patented when it happened. And I use the example of Sega Bass Fishing here as something that felt so close to Nintendo's patent. You could talk about prior art, throwing an object into a playfield to capture something, which is exactly what you do in Pokemon, which is exactly what you do in Palworld, but it does reflect a 3D space, because obviously in 2D, Pokeballs have been thrown around for decades now to capture monsters. And if you consider a giant bass a monster bass, then you basically kind of have the exact same thing. But we have a better example of prior art now with an 8-year-old Grand Theft Auto 5 mod, which basically takes the world of Pokemon and injects it into the universe of Grand Theft Auto, which is a mix-up you would never expect to hear about, but it is one that Palworld's lawyers can and probably will argue that invalidates one of the 3 Nintendo patents that Nintendo's actually suing Palworld on. So let's move into the footage here. This is from Ludicrous Beach's YouTube channel. They are the people that made the mod. You'll see it's Grand Theft Auto 5 Pokemon Go Edition. Now this predates any of Nintendo's patent filing, so it would be classified as prior art, and we'll get into the exact definition legally and go through some government documents in just a few moments. But you will see here, not only is the trailer pretty hilarious, but it's also going to have a character throwing a ball in a 3D space, affecting the playfield, including capturing monsters and throwing them back into the play world. This is exactly what one of the 3 patents that Nintendo just amended after the release of Palworld to be able to sue on. So this is a situation in which it could be possible that Nintendo loses one of the 3 patents that they are actually suing about. You can drop characters into the world. It is pretty funny to see these characters running around Grand Theft Auto 5, and even if the models definitely are missing some polys and textures there, it is fun just as a proof of concept. But in this instance, what really matters is it's doing what Nintendo Nintendo's patents are patenting, and it is doing it long before those patents were ever issued. The first one was issued in 2021, and then it was amended as a child patent in 2024 after the release of Palworld. That means Nintendo's lawyers and researchers went through Palworld and amended their patents to make sure that Palworld would infringe upon them. And that is definitely one strategy, but it really feels downright dirty when somebody like Nintendo does that. It is, again, just a situation where Sony is now partnering with Palworld to basically expand the IP and universe of Palworld, and Nintendo doesn't like the fact that Sony is supporting what they consider a direct competitor. But again, now we have this mod from Grand Theft Auto 5 that basically shows that a different party came up with this innovation before Nintendo did. If you're thinking throwing a ball into a playfield isn't really an innovation, I'm only using the legal terms here. Interestingly enough, too, these reinforced patents specifically target Palworld's game mechanics. A lawyer in Japan, and again, I only have experience in the United States system here with a little bit of European knowledge, but as far as Asia is concerned, I have no idea how things work, but this person clearly does, and they've gone in and determined that Nintendo altered these patents with those child patents to make sure that they were infringing. But that might not matter again for one of the three patents here, the one talking about throwing a sphere into a playfield, because that's back in 2016, long before that was included in Arceus, or however you pronounce Pokemon Legends there. If I got it wrong, leave me a comment down below. You guys always do. But this is funny. Somebody out there just decided it would be great to see Pokemon in something like Grand Theft Auto 5. And now that is a defense for Palworld to say, well, Nintendo, this isn't your innovation, there's prior art on it, and that patent should be ruled inadmissible and invalid, and it should be revoked. And it's all down to the fact that you can throw a Pokeball in Grand Theft Auto 5 and capture monsters. And that is the really fun thing about patent law, DMCA law, copyright law. There's so many different ways to do your research, there's so many different exemptions to rules, and you really have to check basically everything. Because when this first came out, another legal analyst said that they thought it was going to end very badly for Pocket Pair, and this is before all the patent information came out, and I said I felt Nintendo was reaching here. And again, I am not a legal expert, I have no law degree, I've not taken the bar exam, nor do I have any desire to do so, but I have taught college level classes in film and entertainment business law, including patent, copyright, IP, DMC, everything like that. So we will talk about prior art now. I understand that it is a little bit of a confusing term. Ignore the word art, just focus on the word prior. It's how the government defines it. But every company, when they want to patent something, needs to do a prior art search, identifying that prior art and recognizing various examples of prior art. To water that down to a more conversational term, if you want to attain a patent over some new innovation or invention, you need to identify the fact that invention doesn't currently exist in some form or another, because you cannot patent something that already exists. Nintendo went out and got a patent and then a child patent to sue Palworld with, based upon throwing that ball into a 3D space. But we now know that there is an example of prior art out there, and this is just one of them that they could use as a defense, but it is the most perfect one because it literally is a Pokeball and it literally is Pokemon in a 3D space. So Nintendo's lawyers, their researchers, didn't go out there and look hard enough, because there is a foolproof example showing that that innovation had already occurred before Nintendo filed that original patent in 2021. That can and possibly will lead to that one patent being taken away from Nintendo. And again, if you go through all the information here, when the original patents were filed and then when the derivative patents were filed after Palworld's release, you can see that every single patent from 2024 is aimed for a lawsuit against Palworld. Nintendo's lawyers set this up, Nintendo's patent filer set this up so that they could make sure everything was done in a manner in which it would hold up legally in court, which is definitely one of the greasiest things I've ever seen here, and it is still open-ended to the point where when this court case starts, Nintendo could file even more child patents and then try to use those against Pocket Pair. So basically, again, Nintendo is just scared here. They feel like Sony is stepping on their toes, and they feel like Pocket Pair is stepping on their toes with a genre that they feel they invented and should be the only ones to actually benefit from. Because at the end of this, seriously, throwing a ball into a playfield and affecting characters in front of you is the most vague patent off the top. Then they get that child patent to make sure that Pocket Pair would be infringing on it, and now we find out, at least for this one patent, there is a previous example of it existing long before Nintendo created the game and long before Nintendo obtained the patent, therefore giving you a prior art example as to why that patent should be invalidated. And honestly, this is probably probably the deepest video I've done in this series about patent law and prior art, but I do like it. It is a little bit of a nerdy aspect of me. There's something about the legal system and its intricacies that I just genuinely enjoy reading about and researching. Definitely not my favorite way to spend my spare time, but it is a good one all the same. Since the current situation of modern Grand Theft Auto 5 may get one of 3 Nintendo patents invalidated in court, and I would absolutely love to see that happen. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, and if you're going to downvote this video just because you think I don't like Nintendo, I know you're going to do it anyway, but I have no issues with them, just their actions. But we're done, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.